You're listening to the podcast for small business owners, entrepreneurs, and founders who are tired of the client hustle. We believe sustainable business isn't about chasing new leads, it's about keeping the great clients you already have. Let's dive in. If you're new here, my name's Sam, and I am talking with Marissa Loewen, and we are going to have a conversation about who she is, how she helps in the world. And if you are a small business owner, entrepreneur, founder, you are in the right spot. We're going to be talking all things client relations, client retention, and specifically about how community helps build in retention. So Marissa, please introduce yourself, say a little bit about who you are, how you help in the world, and we'll just dig right in.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited. When I saw your podcast, the whole premise behind it, I knew I had found somebody that I could really just have such a great conversation with. Community is everything to me. I have always said I get by with a lot of help from my friends. I have been building in-person events since 2012, and I could not do any of that without a strong community of makers and creators and my friends and family who are willing to even travel hours to come help me put on these incredible experiences. And when I started doing that, I thought, okay, I can't go ask people for help for something I want to do. But I started to see something in there in that people wanted to be a part of something. People wanted to belong. They wanted to see how they could contribute into creating something more. And that got me really interested in how we build communities, how we use communities, how communities work with different kinds of folks. And also, I think what's really important is how communities thrive without being productive, like where all the members have to constantly be producing or contributing in a stereotypical way. And so with that, I started creating online communities where we would come together and start to really be real. And I think that's another thing that we are missing in a lot of communities today is that there's a lot of performance happening. But when we give a really great opportunity for people to step in and be in community and be nourished by community and thrive in community, we see some really cool things happening in the world. So I do have an event company still where we do pop-ups. We do temporary little pop-ups in person with made local artists and creatives. I'm also a marriage commissioner, so I see community in a completely different way where people are starting off on an adventure together and we see community there. And then I have an online virtual community called The Good Gather, and that is where we basically come together and be humans and laugh and cry and shake our fists at the world and create things together and have really great conversations in the world. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, that's great. So where do you actually live? Where are
Oh,
you at in
yeah.
the world?
I'm in Alberta, Canada. So if
Okay.
anybody's watching,
Yeah,
where are you?
I'm in Texas.
You're in
Yeehaw.
Texas. Okay, well, Alberta, we call Alberta Little Texas. So we're
Yeah, we
practically
know.
family then.
I know.
Yeah,
I have some friends and some people in my community that are in Canada that live in Alberta. And then there's Nova Scotia. There's somebody in Nova Scotia that I know. Yeah, there's others. There's several in Canada up in that neck of the woods. So that's super cool. I wasn't sure because we don't call like you were saying marriage commissioners. We call a wedding officiant or something
right.
like
We
that. So
also
it's
say
slightly
officiant. Yeah, officiant, marriage commissioner. There's a whole bunch of terms, but basically, I stand up there and I make sure people get married.
yeah. That's so fun. Yeah. And so several of the things you said, talking about community and the safety and being able to be real, what I've done, I actually have a women's community that I started 11 years ago. It's called Safe Heart Connections, and it's for women who it's changed over the years, but it's really for women who are ready to create a life that they love, one choice at a time. And I believe that begins with healthy self-love and gratitude. And when you
Mhm.
tie those two things together, it's really remarkable to see what happens. And so I have a space on school. We'll talk about platforms in just a little
Yeah.
bit. And I love school for a lot of reasons, but some of the things that we were talking about before we hit record about a lot of posturing and people not being real and it's all about performance. I do see that in some other communities, but on mine, it's been really just lovely to watch the women come together and support each other. I haven't figured out, and maybe we can talk about this,
Yeah.
the magic of because we have people from all over the world and getting together at a consistent time There's never a good time for
Yes,
everybody,
that's
and
right.
how to get them to be able to participate and engage, even if they can't come to one of the calls or something. And so it
Mhm.
sounds like you may have some more experience around that. And but that directly ties to retention because if they're not participating, they're not going to continue.
That's right. Yes and no. That's what I find so very interesting. I have had members who have been part of this virtual community for years, and I'm like, oh, I haven't seen them for a while. And I'll turn off their auto renew because I'm like, you know what? I don't want them just paying for not getting out of it. And then I've had them go, hey, I turned that back on. I'm still a part of this, even though I can't be in right now. I see what you're creating in the world. So it's really interesting too, because I think we have really, social media has done things to us. It has really eroded what we value as community because we think that engagement is showing up to the calls or participating in a thread or checking in every day when maybe it's not. Maybe we really need to start to take a look at what people feel like belonging means to them. And it might not be those stereotypical reasons. They might just be, they know they're a part of it. I had a person who adamantly would go out talking about how they're a part of the Catalyst, which was our business support version of the Good Gather. And I'm like, you've only been in once. She's like, I just love being a part of it. I love talking about it. I love seeing what you do. I love telling other people about it. And she's like, my level of support, I don't really need a lot right now, but I just love being a part of it and saying I'm a part of it. I'm like, oh, okay. I
Yeah,
need to take a
yeah, I
look
feel
at.
that.
And so
There's a
you might
program I was
find,
part of that I didn't show up on any of the calls, but I was getting exactly what I needed from what
Mhm.
they were doing in the program itself. And I was self-pacing and doing the things, right? And so I didn't need as much of the actual interaction. I can confirm that for sure.
Yeah, and that's it's something as like when we're a community curator or a leader, sometimes we have to really look at what our own biases are, where we might get frustrated that people aren't responding or not being a part of a conversation and thinking, oh, I'm doing all this work and I'm not really. You have to go, is that my validation? Is that what I need as a part of a community? And that is important feedback. And it's an ongoing conversation with folks. It's like, what does belonging actually mean to you? How do you feel like you belong in this community? And when you get that feedback, actually listen to it and then see
Right.
how you can duplicate or replicate that.
Yeah, that's so good. So tell me about what did you call it? The gathering,
The Good Gather.
the good
Yeah.
gather.
So
So tell me about that.
we have been running the Catalyst, which is a done with you business support system. And what I mean done with you means people come into a live room. They're like, I'm working on my website, my funnel, my all this kind of stuff. And we would do it right there, right in the room with them. So it was an innovative kind of support and community building. But what I found is that a lot of our folks that had been with us for 4 or 5 years, they didn't need so much business support now because their businesses were running well, they had everything going, but they still wanted to show up. And it didn't make sense that they would continue paying at the higher rate of the container because they don't need as
Sure.
much support, right? And so what I said was, okay, what if we start creating more opportunity for people just to come together to do meal planning, to just say how you doing, to talk about things that they had find interesting without necessarily needing to have a business, without necessarily needing to have business support. So we created the Good Gather, which is definitely a lower priced offer. It is an opportunity for people to come in. Not only can they join the gathers that we have, but they can create their own and they can host them and start to look at how they want to gather community without having to do all of the infrastructure. Because even though you're
Yeah.
using school, but you know that the setup and the ongoing maintenance and
Yeah.
all that stuff you have to do
Well,
that
yeah, and
create the
periodically I have to
container.
go back and re-look at the videos and the stuff for the onboarding process because I'll offer something new or do something different. And I'm like, oh, that was changed a month and a half ago, and the onboarding video still says the wrong thing. So yeah, you definitely have to
Exactly.
keep it up.
It's so much work, right? But that can prevent really great
Mhm.
community leaders from gathering the folks that they really want to hang out with, right? And so what we did was we tried to reduce all of those barriers where people can come in and they're like, I want to have a gather where we listen to a podcast together, we watch a documentary together, we do co-working, we do body doubling, we do meal planning, we do anything, right? But they don't have to worry about the infrastructure. And we can help them if they do have a business. They don't have to have a business to host a gather, but if they do, we can also help them create what we call commerce and community. So, ways that people can know how to work with them or buy from them without it ever being a hard sell, where people can just come in, get to know people, purchase things if they want to, find out more information about their gather host. We build all of that into an interactive virtual room. Now, the big difference is, and I'm excited to talk about this with you, is that we do everything live. We do have a chat. There's an ongoing chat. So we do find where people came in and some people have started creating these was here stickers that they
Yeah.
put in the chat, which I love. It's such a great way because when you come in, you're like, oh, I was here. Oh, I missed them. And you can message them within the platform as well. So you can set up times. Let's co work together. The rooms are open 24 hours a day. So people can come in whenever they want. We're sometimes in there at like 1 a.m. doing stuff and being in community because that was when everybody was there. But I love this idea of coming in and being live together because it is a different feeling. The asynchronous side of being a part of a thread is for very different purposes than necessarily what we do. And I'm curious about your community being on school. Like, how do you find the threads go, like where somebody posts
Yeah.
and then 3 days later, replies might still be coming in? Do people come back and
Sometimes
still
they
take
do.
part?
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
really great question. And so what I find, I'm typically working with women that are the age demographic that I work with typically are 40, not always, but 40 and above. And we've got
Mm-hmm.
some women even in their late 70s, early 80s in the community.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say this with all the love that I can. They're not as tech savvy or tech
Okay.
comfortable. And
Okay.
so that matters in that sometimes the posting gets done and then somebody comments somewhere completely else because that's where they saw, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, that goes with that. And so it's funny. They do better live, like when they can get on the Zoom or the call or whatever
Yes.
it is, the live
Yeah.
interaction is definitely better. And you really got me thinking though, and this was not the intent of this call, but because Safe Heart Connections, the way I have structured it, works for me.
Right.
I work really well within systems, within processes, because I'm doing so many things that I have to have buckets of,
Yes.
right? And so that works really well for me. But I haven't really created a very good space for the people that just want to pop in together. So that
Right.
you really got me thinking about that because people, if they're having a hard time or they want to reach out, they comment, people will engage with them almost
Yeah.
right away. But
Yeah.
sometimes you just need to see someone. There's something different about seeing someone on the other side, even if it's a screen. It's not the
Mm-hmm.
same shoulder to shoulder, but it
Mm-hmm.
is better than just a text of, hey, I'm praying for you, I'm thinking of you, or here to
Exactly.
support you.
And the challenge with Zoom is you can't really host this container because you'd have to come in and open up the Zoom room and all this kind. And yeah, they might have a Zoom and say, I'll meet you on Zoom. But what that's one of the things that we found was building these containers that were open 24 hours a day is that people were coming in and meeting each other. And we have a bunch of different rooms. They're all different kinds of themes and some have only two seats and some have 20 seats. So people want to have a private conversation. They just pop into a two-seat room and do that together, right? So they build levels of community and we allow them to do that and create that at any point. And I for us because we did the Catalyst for 4 years, we've done the Good Gather now for almost a year. What we've seen is it's that I'm feeling alone or I'm feeling like I need someone to help me walk through this. We had somebody the other day that said, I just need to get this one email out the door. I'm here for 7 minutes tops, but thank you all for being here. And she
Yeah,
came in and we were all talking and chitter chattering. And then I just need to tell you that I'm done. Thank you. I have been putting that off for 2 weeks. Just sitting here with you means that I could get that done. Now,
that's great.
but I've done that too for myself when nobody else is in the room. It's that act of physically putting my avatar into a virtual seat and being like, I'm working because I work from home. There's 8
Yeah,
bazillion distractions from the dishes to the cats to TV, everything else. But there's something very like methodical. You talked about systems, so systematic, built into my corporate. I used to be in corporate business where I sit down in a seat and I'm ready to work. And that's where that has happened. When someone else is in that room, I have then that extra layer of accountability. I need to get this done. And we do this all the time. People will message us and be like, are you around? Can we hop into one of the rooms? I'm like, yeah, let's go. If I'm not doing anything, I'm like, let's go. And it's been an interesting way to see how community can develop organically, because we also have these times what we set out with the good gap. We're going to have meal planning on Mondays at 3 o'clock. We do that. And it's good for the people who need that in their schedule, right? Who need to
Yeah.
put that in there, have that visual, audio reminder, I need to be somewhere. And then for the rest of folks that are just like, I just showed up. I know this is, and people do this all the time. They're like, I know this is supposed to be meal planning, but I'm just going to sit in here and I need to get an email done. Does anyone mind? No, of course not. Hi,
I love
welcome,
that. That's so great.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. You got me pondering on some things. So thank you. Because I agree with you. Community is everything. Who you surround yourself with matters. It's gonna, it it will help you become better or not, depending on who you're spending time with. If
Mhm.
you're with time suckers or people that drain you completely, and then you're expecting to go into the world and be full of joy and giving, and you're like, I got nothing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's so good. So, one of the things that you had mentioned on the form you filled out, which you did a little while ago, you may not even
Yeah.
remember what you said.
I looked at it just now.
Okay, good. So I would actually really, and I would love to have this conversation because it's something that I see happening a lot with what I do with the client retention, team retention thing,
Mhm.
is that people think that by building an audience, they're building in a community, and
Mm,
maybe community is not the right exact word for what I do, but it sort of is. It's more of those, they say that you really only need 100 true fans to truly be able to create whatever you want. If they're your, I don't want ride or die, but nobody
right.
has to die.
Yeah.
But you
Your
have those people,
ambassadors. Yeah.
your ambassadors, right? And so just by building an audience, you're not building that in. And if you truly want a sustainable business, you have to have those people around you. So I would love to hear your thoughts around that.
I think we saw a really good example of people building audience, not community, was the brand Facebook groups that were really popular about 5 to 8 years ago. I would say they trailed off because the algorithm, once it stopped coming up in your feed, the Facebook groups, and it really came as people did not want to send out emails, right? And so what they would do is they would create these funnels and get everybody into these Facebook groups, and you weren't allowed to promote your own stuff. You weren't allowed to really talk about anything. You couldn't have links. There was all these rules. Only the person who created that group could post in there. And then they wondered why their group fell off of people's algorithms, right? Because there wasn't this organic way of participating and sharing and creating, because it was all really centered around this one person. And if I had a nickel for every time I saw it's your group, your rules,
You're
I
like,
would
but
not
it's
need to
not.
work again, right? Because I
Yeah.
could see it, but I could also see how there was no community being built. It was merely still a one-sided projection of one person trying to communicate to a bunch of people. They're trying to
Mhm.
communicate them in order to sell them into something. And
Yeah.
there was so much competition brain in there that they couldn't allow people to participate naturally, and then it just fell off.
Yeah.
I saw that happen over and over again, and it broke my heart because there would be really great groups of people who had come together that had a shared idea or interest that this person had put out there, and they wanted to talk about it, but there was so many rules and so many restrictions, and people will say, oh, they're boundaries and all that. No, it was just really a control. And so we didn't see actually community being created. Communities might have splintered off of it though. A really good example, I was in a very popular Facebook group. Because of all the rules, there was all these little side groups related to the brand, which is scary if you have a major brand, to have all of these little factions that are surrounding your brand, but you have no ability to be in there, no part of that conversation, right? And I think that's definitely a symptom. If you find there's a safety in people going off and creating their own thing in your stuff, do that. But there is a danger where where you have kept so much control on the main container that people don't feel like they don't belong. They're just there. They're just being spoken to.
Yeah, there's a couple of communities that I'm part of now, that one was a coaching program that I was in, And I really resonated with some of the people in that community, and we
Yep.
still meet periodically, even though we're not there. That's the
Yeah.
kind of thing that I want, where I
Yeah.
meet with somebody, there's an impact made, and then we stay connected outside of
And you go
whatever
and
the
you go
scope
create
was.
something new.
Yeah,
That is the sweet spot. If somebody has to go and say, this doesn't work for me, I like the idea, but I need to create the thing that I want to create, but it's the exact same thing, but it's what it has my rules, then we know that we've just built, and I wouldn't even say it's that great of an audience because they're not interested anymore in what you're putting out because they have felt so removed and so excluded that they want to create the same thing you're doing somewhere else.
yeah, yeah, that's not good. Yeah, that's such a good take on building community and making sure that the rules aren't the rule. There should, I do agree on some level that there have to be guardrails or
Sure.
boundaries
Absolutely.
to protect people. Like in Safe Heart Connections, I say that we only Wednesday is promote anything day.
Okay.
So people can promote anything. And the only reason it's only on Wednesday is because I don't want it to be all about promotion all the time. I really want the self-love and gratitude and pulling people in that way. And but I'll have other people that teach the same thing I teach. And I've had people say, are you going to let them promote themselves in your community? It's Wednesday. They can, if they're in there and they want to promote, absolutely. The more the merrier, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have actually left several groups just because they say one thing and they're like, oh yeah, this, we're here for you. But then I try and engage in some healthy way. And then the post gets removed or I get scolded. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to tap out on that.
I've been there too, where I'm just trying to talk about what I'm going through. And they're like, this sounds like self promotion because you've talked about your business. I'm like, we're in a business group. Like, how do you talk about business without ever mentioning what you do? And I think I saw yesterday I was in a group and I was trying to ask this person, like, what do you do? Like, what do you actually do? And she's, are you trying to help me with marketing? I'm like, no, I just want to get to know who you are. I just don't have no, your everything is so vague and secretive that it's really hard for me to connect with what you're asking because I have no idea. I can't figure out what it is you're doing. And she's like, all that stuff is in my marketing. I'm like, I'm here right now trying to have a conversation with you human to human. I don't want to go look at your marketing. I don't want to sell you anything. I have no desire to try and sign you as a client. I just want to know who you are and what you're doing in the world because I'm
Yeah.
curious and it sounds like you're going through something. And I
Yeah.
think that's a remnant of where people have felt so restricted or so scolded that they can't actually even just share what they do naturally. And I think we've seen that too, even when people do promote, and you might have seen this in your community, is that people are still really vague, right? Even when they're promoting on that Wednesday, they've missed
No,
the
my girls are
part.
good. They're
Okay, that's
good.
good. That's good
Yeah.
because I've seen it and I'm like, these are just they're just ads, right? Because and they're soulless ads because people are so worried that if they are too good, they will be removed from that community. And that community might be providing them
Yeah, I know
companionship.
it happens, but not in my, they're good.
Good.
And some of
Yeah.
them have been in there for years together now. And so they know I've hosted a couple of retreats and several of them have been once or twice. And so they know some of the women there.
So
So
you've
that's
built the
really good.
safety in there where they can actually talk about what they do. And that's something that I would encourage anybody who's watching this who's saying, how do I know if my community feels safe with me? We don't have any kind of restrictions about promoting. You want to talk about your business? I'm always like, drop a link, drop a link, drop a link. Because one, I want people to get used to talking about what they do, especially in the business side of the containers. Two, we've also built the commerce in there. So if somebody's hosting a gather, we build all of the links and the buttons and the interactive
So
pieces and
good.
the pop-ups and stuff like that. So as the gather is happening, if people are interested, oh, I'm really interested in what Lacey's doing, they can go and hover and learn more about Lacey, go to Lacey's website, see Lacey's offers, maybe interact with something in the room that brings up more of the story of Lacey's brand. And we can do all of that without Lacey ever having to sell anything. Right.
Yeah.
And so we make it so natural that people are just able to be themselves. They're able to talk about what they love. And we don't ever have this kind of, should I talk about this? I've had people say, I don't want to talk too much about my brand. I'm like, please tell me more. Please talk about, please. Please just say it, just because you never know who's going to be in that room too that needs what you have. And people have worked together and bought from each other because we've made it so normal to
Yeah,
talk about what we do.
that's so good. So I started going to some in-person networking where I live. And I used to run networking groups back in the day, like 15 years ago.
Hmm.
And as my life has changed, my energy levels have changed. I'm definitely an introvert. I play an extrovert for work. And the networking events in person, IRL, they literally exhaust me. And
Yeah.
all the people and all the noise and all the things. But I've been going and I've started making some friends. We moved from the DFW area down towards Austin about 4 years ago.
Okay.
And I recognized I still have friends. Every other week on Wednesday afternoons, not today, but next Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central, I get on a call with a couple of my girlfriends that we get on every other week. And I have friends and I talk to people online all the time like this. And so I feel like I'm not isolated, but I recognized I've lived here for 4 years and I didn't know anybody. And so I actually created a segment of my business, which is a local online directory,
Love it.
to where then I have to go out and meet people. And so I've started going
Cool.
and started meeting people and having those shoulder to shoulder type things. And it's still exhausting to me, but I also feel better knowing I'm meeting people, right? And I think post COVID, that so many of us were so isolated. And for me personally, because I was already working from home, my life did not change that much when COVID
Right.
happened because I was
Yeah.
already in the thing, right? But for so many of us, we have just extended that for so long that we just don't do anything. And we're called for relationship. We're called to community, truly. And I recognize that I was dropping the ball on that. And so I guess it's been 3 or 4 months ago since we started. And I actually go to a meeting tomorrow. And I've been thinking about what I'm going to say. I'm going to run it by you and see
Okay.
if what you think,
Okay.
because you do community. And so keep in mind, this meeting meets every other Thursday. And so
Okay.
some of these people I've only seen 4 or 5 times. If they've been there the whole time, I wear the hat every time. So they know the
Good.
hat. They know
Branding.
the
Yep.
hat, right? But I've tried talking because I use the directory locally to build the relationship, the conversation, and then
Yep.
we move to the other things. But what I've found is that when I'm listening to somebody else talk, what I'm thinking about is not what they do, but what you just said of who are you? And so tomorrow I plan on saying something to the effect of, I could tell you all about my business in 30 seconds or less, but instead of that, I'm going to tell you something about me. And I'm going to tell them just one little short fact and say, if you want to get to know more about who I am, let's schedule a time to talk.
I love it. I find because I have my three focuses, my three businesses, I find it actually really challenging when people are like, "What do you do?" And now I'm like,
Yeah.
I build
I got an
community.
email the other day that said, what do you do for networking connection? Somebody
Yeah.
referred me. What do you do for work? And I'm like, so I wrote him back. I said, that's too long of an answer. Let's just get on a call.
Right. But like when you're at these networking events, and I'm curious to see, is the culture different from like DFW with down where you are now by Austin? Do you find that the people are different in those kind of networking events, or do you
No,
find it's still the same?
I hadn't done it for 15 years.
Okay.
So it's been a long time. But the really funny thing about it was I used to go, I don't know if I've ever told this story on a podcast. It was really funny. It was probably 2018, and I owned a local publication where I sold advertising, and the publication went to
Great.
residents in the neighborhood.
Yep.
And I got invited to a networking group at a fancy hotel where they smoked cigars and drank whiskey. And I don't smoke, but I do drink whiskey. And
As all good folks should.
I know. And so I go and I'm like, I am just not cool enough to be at this group, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm the eccentric, kind of freaky, not freaky, but just like I'm different than everybody else. They're all kind of straight laced, older white men mostly. And just, it was very weird. But so that was 2018. And I still have friends with some of those straight laced people. They're very friendly. We had great conversations. And it was set up to where it wasn't about business. It was truly just smoking a cigar, having some
Right.
drink,
And
getting to know
connecting,
each other and connecting.
connecting. Yeah.
And so fast forward to this new group, the guy that ran the one in DFW, he was from Germany. One of the guys that I met that goes to this one, he's actually from Brazil, I think, but he hosts a once a month, he calls it puff and drink, which is the same thing. And he has a thick accent just like Martin did. And then there was another guy that
He should have
reminds
called
me
it
of this
puff and
other
pour.
guy.
He really
I
missed an opportunity. Puff and pour.
Yeah.
Tell me is change it.
Maybe that's what it's called. I don't know. But anyway, it was so funny how it's 10 years removed and I'm identifying the same types of people in the room.
Okay,
Like
that's
this one guy
interesting.
reminded me of this other guy, Chris Viola. And then it was just this whole thing. And I'm like, it's the same. We're all the same. Everybody's the same. We're just playing out at our own time. And it was just very interesting to me.
So the reason
And
why I
so,
asked, it's interesting though that you said that connection was the priority and not necessarily business. Because what I have found is that at some of these networking, because every once in a while a friend will be like, "Let's go to this thing together," and I'm like, "Okay, I'll go." And I used to run also networking events, very different. It was called Awkward Social. It was definitely for people who were introverts who were coming together to see if they could build out their network of collaborators and creatives, not necessarily to sell to someone else, right? But anyways, we've gone to a few of these networks after the panorama, and we've all lost our ability to be in community and connection. But what I found is almost like a frantic energy of some of these network events because people are just trying to get as many names or get their name in front of as many people as possible. And to be honest, I can't remember any of those people that were really
yeah,
frantic,
no,
but the people who
yeah,
did lead with something more like what you were saying is who are you, or who people come up and be like, what was the best thing that happened to you last week? And
yeah,
I'm like, oh, that's a good question. And then we would talk about it, and then we would share the experience of that best thing
yeah.
and get to know each other,
Yeah,
right?
the group that I'm going to is actually really pretty good at that. And there are those people that back in the day, there was a girl that would run up to the front of the thing and jump on a ta chair and a table. One of the first meetings I went to, this dude ran from the back and jumped on the chair. And I'm like, I can't make this up. But the
It's
group
almost
that
like archetypes, right? The
I know, that's what
archetypes
I'm
of a
saying. They're all
networking
the
event.
same. They're all the same. And
We should do like a deck of cards that's like the archetypes of who's at the networking meetings,
yeah.
and it's like, or
And
a
so
bingo
the group
card
that I'm
people can
going
go.
to is actually really good, and they build it into where part of their time is they have a connection question in your table. You talk about the question, and
Yeah,
sometimes it's about business. Sometimes it was actually a couple weeks ago was about one of your favorite memories, something you had a photo of that you could talk
great.
about.
Yeah, it's
And
good.
so they do a really pretty good job, and it's still exhausting. And I'm already thinking about tomorrow, thinking, yeah, I'm going. I'm going. I'm going.
So
I
I'm an
promise I'm
introvert
going.
as well. And so I first started when I graduated college, I was in public relations and communications. And so there was a lot of networking events and learning events. And it was definitely had they told us this is how you're going to find your job is to go and show up at these communicators events. And so I did something a little different because I thought, okay, people aren't going to necessarily remember me. I don't necessarily have a face or a hat that I'm going to wear. That's a great way for people to recognize you, having that kind of something. Now I have the hair color, so it does, people do remember me. But I created a little business, and I'm an introvert, so I don't like talking about myself or what I do. I'm just like, I'd rather just sit here and have a conversation. I created a little business card. The front had my like how to contact me. On the back, it had my skills and my current projects I was working on. And then when I
Ah,
met somebody and they'd say, "Do you have a card?" And I would pull it out and I would write where they met me, so the event, and then I'd write something that we talked about on that card. And then I would hand it to them so that when they went through their Rolodex and they're,
they're like,
trying to
who is
find, they're
that?
like, "Oh yeah." And I got hired by a few of those business cards where people were like, "Hey, I popped up that business card and you had your little mini resume on the back. You're perfect for this
You're really
job." And I'm
smart.
like, but it was, again, it's the connection point, right? I know that they're busy. I know that they are going to forget necessarily who, but if I put one thing that was pretty memorable on there, it can help them remind who they are. And that's something we do in the rooms as well. So because we have a visual space in the Good Gather, is when people like when we have something that's a connection point or something that's funny or an inside joke, we build it into the rooms. So the other day, one of the operations person had put a troll doll on a bookshelf, and we have a member who created art. She has this whole art series that she was going to do on troll dolls, and she collected all these troll dolls. She came in, she was like, "Is there a troll doll on that shelf?" And we're like, yeah. Yeah, there is. Another one of our members, she's famous for giving people the side eye. When they come in, when you come in and you're like, I know that I shouldn't be doing this, but I'm going to tell you that I did this anyways. She gives a side eye. She's like, how do I give a side eye in here without turning on my camera? So I built one in. It's a button. It says for Biba only. You click on it and these little side eyes come scrolling out. And
So funny.
but those are connection points, right? That's where people come in and they go, wait a second, I'm important here. The contributions I have created are being recognized, and I can see how those changes have happened. I know you talk about retention and talk about onboarding. That's where it starts. When you start to
100%.
acknowledge how
Yes.
that person has changed that event, even these networking events that you're going to impact that event tomorrow by coming in and not saying, what do you do? That's a contribution. If they notice that and the next event, they're like, you know what? We had a great member who brought in a different question last week. We're going to try it out for everybody. That's going to stick in your mind, right? You're going to go, wait a second, I'm being
Definitely.
recognized for my
Yes.
contribution here. And that's another way that you're going to find that retention, because people feel like they belong, that they have been,
Well,
that they have made an
normally
impact.
the way the podcast goes is we talk a little bit about you and then we move to retention. We didn't really do that, but if people have been listening, we've been talking about retention the
The
whole
whole time.
time. The
Yeah,
whole time. Because when you do it well and you build in people to where when you onboard, you connect with them, whether it's
that's right.
connecting or onboarding, whatever you want to call it, then you continue that relationship. The connection in the community is the most powerful thing. When you recognize them, you make them feel seen or heard or understood or not judged in any way. And Tony is here. You can't see Tony. She's helping. She actually goes to some of the networking things for me, so I don't have to go to all of them. And she's working on a project for me. And I gave her the information to do, and she's actually doing it on her own way. And before we got on, she goes, I love that you don't judge me that I'm doing this in a certain kind of way. And I'm like, that I'm so sorry that's happened to you in the past,
Yeah.
because right? Because you tell somebody that's working with you how to do something, and then you immediately scold them that they didn't do it the way you thought they should, and you didn't tell them what to do. And yeah, no. So
And what
you
if
want
it's
to keep your
better?
team longer. Yeah, that's what I'm like. It's almost always better. My way is not always the best
Yeah.
way. It's almost
Yeah.
always
I
not the
cobbled
best.
that through it. You're the expert and you know how to do it way better.
Yeah.
Good on you.
Yeah, I know. And so it's just if you want to keep your team longer, show them appreciation, let them know that their brain works. They don't have to depend on you to do everything. I have a team that works for me. All of them are remote except for Tony. And I want them to have the freedom to do,
Yes.
I hired them for a reason, right? And my company is stronger because everything's not weighted on my shoulders anymore. And so,
Yes.
from a business point of view, if you want to keep your team longer, man, let them use their brain, let them be creative, let them figure out what they're good at and do that.
And acknowledge if they create something that makes your business run better. I used to work
Oh,
for a
yeah.
major retailer here in Canada. It's gone now, but the oldest retail in North America, the Hudson's Bay Company, and I worked both on the till and in the switchboard in the cash office. And there we had this is 20, 30 years ago, but we had paper gift certificates. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. There's a lot of fraud that can happen here. It's really hard. People will come in and they'll have $100 gift certificate, and it's they buy a piece of gum and now I got to give them $99 back. Then my till's short. Anyways, we had a phone in our staff room and it said, pick up the phone to talk to the vice president. I was like, as if it's probably a voicemail. So I pick it up and it's like, ring. And he's like, Mark here. And I'm like, shut the front door. I'm like, this is really the vice president. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, never mind. I have something I need to tell you. And so I gave him the whole background and the problem and the issue. And I'm like, they are now coming out with plastic gift cards. And I'm going to tell you why we need to get on this. Because one, it's going to keep more money in here because that money is going to be on there. We aren't giving up money out of the till. They're not getting this gift, but also it's going to be harder to create fraud on them. And I'm like, can I just tell you some of the leading companies right now in Canada that are doing that? And he was like, oh, he's like, this is good. This is good. And I was like, okay, cool. Didn't think anything about it. 5 months later, big, huge announcement across Canada. We're going plastic gift cards. And guess what? The vice president said this came from a suggestion from one of our stores in Edmonton,
Wow.
Alberta. Her name is Marissa.
Well,
She works, this is where she
well
worked, this
done,
is where she
sir.
saw it. And I was like, and they sent me a watch. I was like, what? Because he was so impressed that I watched all of and I had all these points. Anyways, I was like, are you kidding? I was like a celebrity. People were like, are you kidding me? We hate these plastic. People were like, they had my picture. So I live in Alberta. I went to Toronto and they're like, wait, you're the one with the gift cards. I'm like, it is me. I'm like, and like people were like, thank you. We hated those paper gift certificates. They were horrible. They were like, I'm like, yeah, now we get to have, we don't, let's
That's
do
so
this.
good.
Anyways, that was, again, I was recognized. I was acknowledged. I could see the impact. I regularly got feedback about how the program was going. It was something that was so easy to do for them and it made such a big difference. Plus
Yeah.
other associates were like, wait, we can pick up that phone in the staff room. I'm like, yeah, he picked it up.
Mark
Like
was like,
they're like, we
what
thought that was just
happened?
yeah, they're like, we thought that was just like a fake phone. I'm like, pick it up. He's gonna answer it, right? And those are then more suggestions started coming in. More associates felt like they could actually be a part of this monolithic company that would give us these plans and these like, here's what you're gonna do. It started to change the culture, and we started to see different innovations
So
because
that's the
people
third
were
part.
online.
For retention made simple, there's 3 steps.
Okay.
Proper onboarding,
Yep.
appropriate appreciation, and actionable feedback. When you as a business ask feedback from your team, your clients, from
Yeah.
people, and
Show
then
it.
you actually you implement because of that, you can't buy. And when you say, hey, I did this because of what you said,
Yeah.
you can't buy that kind of loyalty.
Yeah. And we've even had people where they do suggest things in the catalyst, and I'm like, I know
Sometimes
it's
they're not
probably
very smart,
it.
but
I
that's okay.
no, I go like, it's interesting, but we'll put it into practice, and then you can see it, and then they'll go, oh, like yeah, but they can see it, right? I'm like, what do we learn from this? One, it doesn't cost me anything to put something into practice that we're testing out. Two, we get to see if maybe it does work now. Like maybe we tried it before, but now it works now. And three, they become part of the process. So they can see, okay, this is why this didn't work, or this is why it did
Yeah.
work. Now, again, we're creating that's the difference in that community and that audience, right? The audience we're
Yeah, it's
just
so good.
projecting and broadcasting out. Whereas now we're creating in community and people are part of how the community changes. You said your community has changed since you started doing it, the purpose, the people. And that's probably because you have been an active person in inviting people to create that community with you.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's so good. We could go on and on. And if
Yes,
you come to Texas, we need to come have some whiskey. We'll have
fair.
whiskey
I'm
together.
there. I'm there.
Yeah. All right. Very good. I am so glad we got to talk. This has been super fun.
Yeah, thanks for
I'll
having
make
me.
sure to put the link for all your stuff around the
Sure.
videos where this goes live. Tell me how people though, just so they can hear it here, how can they find you for your community? Is there a main
Yeah.
website or where do
Yep,
they go?
there is. It's thegoodgather.io. Very easy. Definitely come in, check us out if you got an idea for a gather. If you want to be a part of a gather, come be in community. It's just such a great way to just explore and to be creative and to laugh and cry and shake our fist at the world at all the things that are happening and just be with people who care about you and will remember your name when you come into the room.
So good. I am so glad, Marissa, that we got to have time, and I will remember your name for sure.
Thank you so much for having me. I love this. We'll do it again.
Of course.
Let's have more conversations.
I agree. Let's do it again.
Remember, the fastest path to growth isn't always the next new client. It's strengthening your relationships with your current ones. And if you want to be a guest to share your tip or get personalized retention advice, check the show notes for details. Thanks for listening.